Hey, good evening, White Sox fans. Welcome to the very first episode of Hot Takes and Heaters here in the 2025 season. And as you will notice, that I have a new co-host sitting across from me here. We are welcoming Jacob Thome for his first and one and only ever start here with FutureSox. So before we get started, I know you guys are all waiting for some new White Sox content, but we're going to go ahead and start with a little background on Jacob Thome. We're going to give him a chance to talk about himself. So, first off, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing well. I talked about these earlier, but I have currently no hot water, which is an absolute joy. Glad that we got a heat front to help that. Totally not, but yeah. So week's been fun, but other than that, no issues.
Right on. Very, very, very bad timing for a hot water heater to go out. So, before we move on, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about yourself a little bit and give us a little bit of history and why you were here. But first things first, I do want to say that we did take some time to interview a handful of folks, and Jacob here was the guy that won out on the job. And I just want to thank all the other applicants that went through the process with us. Everybody was amazing. All you guys that checked in with us and did that, we really appreciate you. We brought on a couple other guys for some other things as well. So, I think in the future here, I'll probably bring on some guys, probably most of the guys that we interviewed along the way, and just give them a chance to have a moment with us and share their piece. But Jacob, I want to get back to you. You can you give us a little bit of a background on how you got here? I could tell everybody how we went through the interview process, but why don't you just let everybody know what exactly it is that you do, where you're at, and what you got going on.
Yeah. So December 16th, 2002, I was born. No, I was kidding. So I graduated from Illinois Media School, formerly of Lombard, now in Rosemont, I believe. Um, And then I graduated from there, did some stuff with the Chicago Dogs and the Windy City Bulls. That was all through school. Went to 670 The Score for a little bit. Was a board op for the BetQL network. So that's kind of my background in talk. Also had a radio show on Sports Chicago, which is like the radio station for the school. So that was fun. That's kind of how I got into talk radio. And then I immediately got out of talk radio, moved down to the middle of nowhere. Shout out Taylorville, Illinois. If you don't know where it is, go to the middle of nowhere and then keep driving for about 30 more minutes. It's middle of nowhere. It's in central Illinois. It's like 30 minutes southeast of Springfield. So I've been down here. I had a radio job for a little bit down here. Now I'm the play-by-play guy, completely different lane in sports media for the University of Illinois Springfield, who starts their baseball season this weekend at home. Did not start, but their home opener is supposed to be this weekend. It has been moved. It's not canceled yet, but it's been moved. So I'm doing some play-by-play stuff. So yeah, that's my entire story. If anybody's wondering, I'm not related to Jim. If you ever watched any of my T-ball highlights, it was very evident from the start. No relation to Jim Thome. I haven't even
Yeah, I
got
tried to
anything
make
out
it
of
a point to pronounce your name correctly right off the top of the show here, hoping
it's
that people would
difficult.
pick up on that because as soon as you see that name, especially in the world of the White Sox, you immediately go there. And since you bring that up, James and Ian made the joke during the interview process, and I don't think we've actually told you this yet. We haven't clued you in, but as soon as we were done, immediately they were like, "We're gonna have to tell everybody this is like your nephew or your kid or something because you guys look like you could be related." So I don't quite see it, but I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, please
The worst thing
continue,
is,
bud.
it's like he grew up in Peoria, like that's where he was born, and then like my dad was born in Wheaton, so they're not that far away. Like it's pretty close.
Yeah, and where you're in Taylorville, so you're even
Right.
closer to Peoria.
It's a mess. So no, definitely for what I know, not related to Jim Thome. If so,
Okay.
none of the talent calendar carried over.
Oh,
Um,
is that right? Well, you've played some ball, have you not? Tell us a
I
little bit about that.
played until like I was 13 years old. That was it.
Oh,
Shout out the Sycamore Park District.
there you go.
Yeah.
Right on. Right on. Cool. Thank you for that. We're sure we're going to learn more and more about you as the season goes on. I do want to kind of take a moment, though, since we've got a little bit of a background on you, uh, to explain first off why we were a minute or two late here tonight. Um, I was having a little bit of some technical difficulties. I've had a rough day all the way around, and some of you that have been fans of the show for a while and longtime listeners will notice that my voice is a little off right now. I've been under the weather for the last week, and I'm just now recovering. But today has been a crazy day, and this is kind of spring training for all of us. So yes, we are so back. Pasty tacos. By the way, to everybody in the chat, thanks for checking in. James, thanks for pointing out that I am back from the dead. Yeah, so really quickly, the reason that we went on a hiatus for so many months there was I did have some health issues, but I'm not going to get into all that. It's a long story. It's good to be back. I was given a clean bill of health recently, aside from the respiratory thing that I've got going on right now. But I just want to thank you guys for checking back in with us and sticking it out, and we really appreciate you. On that note, I do want to point out that super chats are open as they were before. So if you feel so inclined to, have a comment highlighted, or if you think you feel like you like the content, by all means, give us a shout out. I'm not going to pander too much. I just want to let you know that it's there. And I think we're about ready to get into some White Sox baseball. What do you think, Jacob?
Something like that. Should be in a very interesting season. I'll leave it at that. We'll get into it.
Well, yeah. So, as we get into the season, we are going to start. We're going to have a couple of new segments here that we haven't had before. I wanted to bring up that Jacob has brought up a really cool thing that we haven't done here yet at FutureSox, and I think we're going to have a 2025 White Sox bingo card. So be on the lookout for that. I am on the wag. Well, I'm not on the wagon, but I'm on the train of cutting back on the heaters. So I'm hoping to be rid of the heaters before the season is over this year, and I don't want to change the name of the show. So what we're going to do is we are going to have the heater of the week that we're going to do. So when a guy gets hot, I'll pick a guy, Jake will pick a guy, and we'll talk about that heater. And hopefully we're not running over the same stuff over and over again, and that there actually is somebody on a heater each week. But we might be going out on a limb with this one here with this 2025 roster. So, but again, all suggestions are going to be well received from all of you guys.
Yeah.
So Jacob, why don't you kick us off with what you want to talk about this week? What do you wanting to get into? I think we want to recap the off season just a hair, correct?
Yeah, I think we should just kind of briefly go over it. It was a very lackluster off season, but when you win 41, win 41 games. If I can get words out of my mouth, that'd be great. It's good for this profession.
It is. It is opening day for us here. So
right.
Hang in there. We're gonna get through this together. We're gonna build a rapport and figure this thing out. But hopefully everybody sticks around while we do that, because like I said, it's been a day, man, and we're a little unprepared. So hang in there, guys.
We got it.
So obviously this offseason and the past year or so, there's been a lot of changes within the White Sox organization. We saw the White Sox bring in a pitching coordinator last year in Brian Bannister. This year we're seeing a new pitching coordinator, or I'm sorry, a new a hitting coordinator. And I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts on that, and where do you see that going?
Yeah, I think it could be the most important signing of the offseason. Obviously, you bring in a new manager and Will Venable, but if he can do half of what Bannister did for the hitting side as Fuller can do. Obviously, a guy who worked with the Orioles prospects. I think he's better suited in a prospect type of role, developing hitters. But it's going to be interesting to see if he can get more out of the hitting prospects. Obviously, you know, listen, it's FutureSox. Everybody knows kind of where the prospects are. It's a pitching dominated system right now, and so hopefully Ryan Fuller is able to develop some of these hitters here. There's guys with a lot of potential. Just looking at a quick look at the system, so excited to see what he can get going. And obviously, we'll let some of the other guys in the system talk about those guys. But I think there's potential too with Luis Robert. I think can you get him back to his MVP form? Um, Andrew Vaughn's only 26 years old. I think there's more potential to get some out of some of these guys. We'll see if that happens. But I think Ryan Fuller really is going to be focused on the prospects, and we'll see.
Awesome. Yeah. So you brought up Will Venable. Just brand new coaching staff all the way around. We have Ryan Fuller, and then of course, talking about prospects. This is FutureSox, right? This Hot Takes and Heaters is the MLB centric show for the site, but part of the reason that the show exists is that FutureSox has been covering prospects for close to 20 years now. I don't remember the exact date of when they started their blog, but kind of find that there's no reason to not continue covering the guys that you started covering as kids. So that's kind of what we're here for. This time of year, more than any time of year, being spring training, and especially with the roster the way it's constructed right now, there's gonna be some overlap until we get the season started and we know exactly what the 26 man looks like. So, thanks, Beef. Appreciate it. It's good to be back. Let me just say that. Thanks for all the shout outs, guys. I appreciate that on Twitch, Twitter, and right here. Yeah, man. Right now, being that there's going to be some competition in camp, right? And a lot of that competition is going to be amongst prospects that are trying to crack the roster. So I hate to say that we're probably going to roll over some of the same content that you might find with Ian and James, and of course with the Roundup guys as well, and Jeff and Elijah. But again, bear with us. We'll get through spring. We'll figure out how these competitions are going, where they're looking, and we'll kind of run over it until we get started on regular season, and the final 26 man, at least for opening day, is announced. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of roster churn throughout the season as well too. So tonight's show, I'm going to kind of lean on Jacob a little bit here because I really, we don't know much. I mean, we had a quick interview and we spent a Saturday with 8 different guys for over about a 2.5 hour period. So it left us about 15 minutes with each guy. So I'm going to kind of lean on you a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead and throw you into the fire for your first show, dude.
Let's do it.
Today, we decided that we were going to call out the corner infield positions and the battles that we see there. Because quite frankly, those look like they're going to be the biggest contested spots on the field right now. Maybe not so much first base, although there is some competition with some, especially a one or two new names that have been thrown in the hat here in the last week or two. So why don't you go ahead and start with that first base, and let's run down that line of guys that we think are in competition for that, and let's give a little bit of thoughts on how you think that's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody knows Andrew Vaughn, right? That's the mainstay there, and personally, I believe he's going to stay there. I put out some tweets today talking about kind of crapping on Tim Elko a little bit, which is never great. I hate I mean, obviously, as a Sox fan, I want to see him do well, but just not a huge. I understand, kind of. I think he's the most. I'll put this kind of heavy, but I think he's the most overrated prospect in the White Sox system from a fan standpoint. I think fans overrate him a little bit. But you have Andrew Vaughn, who obviously you kind of know what he is at this point. They bring in Joey Gallo, which is kind of an interesting piece. He was bad last year, but former 2-time All-Star. He's got pop. The aforementioned Tim Elko, little Bobby Dahlbach option. Bobby Dalback. That's a I don't know if I have the accent for that. Yeah, sorry, Ian. Hate to, poop on Elko, but again, would love to see him pan out. Again, I'm a Sox fan. If he hits, 30 home runs and hits 300, I will be rightfully wrong. But first is kind of an interesting position. I just don't know. I mean, really looking at back at last year, Andrew Vaughn was their best hitter, which is,
Oh,
again, of the bars
where's
to clear.
Beefoff on that? See, he's in the chat. It's his favorite player. Excuse me. Sorry. Did I say I said
No,
that out loud? He's a known hater. I mean, I don't want to say hater, but he's just not his biggest fan.
I feel like there's a lot of White Sox fans who are big haters of Andrew Vaughn. Rightfully so. I mean, you spent a third overall pick on a guy, and yeah, that's what we've gotten out of him. But I think when you look at it, he was the best hitter on the Sox last year. Just looking at the stats, so I just don't see anybody beating him out. Now, I think a lot of people are up on Joey Gallo right now, but like you look at his stats last year, they were not great. He's an aging player.
It's not great as being nice. And I
Well,
hate to crap on a guy too hard, but he's had a run of a few seasons where he has not been his former self at all. So I am not a particular big fan, although I feel like, again, we talked a little bit about Ryan Fuller earlier. If he feels like him and his guys on his staff can unlock something to at least bring something back from Gallo where he was, this is a White Sox team who should be hitting a ton of bombs, especially in a ballpark friendly park, or I'm sorry, a hitters friendly park, as the rate is, and
the rate, got to get used to that one.
yeah, it's not G rate. It's G rate sounds too close to great. But they didn't change that arrow pointing down, did they? Oof. But yeah.
I mean, it's got to
So
go up, right? It can't get worse. Is that the hope there?
I think we said that in 23 as well. So I don't really know. I'm
Might
not
have said it
gonna
in 22
I'm
when
not
they
gonna
went
put
500.
that stink out there. I'm really not, dude. Like you know what? I feel like I've said that many times in the past, and the White Sox say hold my beer, so I'm really not gonna go there. What's up, Colty? Good to see you again.
First show of the year, and we get a Yomer Sanchez shout out. Love it.
Yeah.
That's a sign that we're gonna have a good year.
Oh,
Talking
I
about
think he'd
Yomer
be mad.
Sanchez first year.
Yomer Sanchez coming back to the White Sox for Andrew Vaughn, and he just got all his buddies back. He's got Tim Anderson over there. He's got Yoan Moncada and Yomer all together with the Angels organization. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think the fun loving Yomer that we had at one point is not going to be that same guy coming back.
No, I agree with you. No, but in terms of Gallo not being good, I think you got to put it on a White Sox scale. But no, he was bad last year. I mean, let's just be straight up about it. He was horrible. But I like the signing. I mean, I think if he's a guy who could return to any sort of level, kind of reminds me of like a Paul DeJong signing, who was a little different because he was a major league contract. But you're just hoping you can turn him into something in terms of that. But I don't know. I don't even think he's going to make the team out of camp. I'm pretty solid on uh on Vaughn to take the spot out of spring training.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. Obviously, he is the incumbent, if you will. If we were talking about it in terms of voting, um, he's been the starter for a few years now. I think this is probably his last chance until somebody kind of steps up and takes the reign. We got people in the farm system. Elko being one of them, and I personally would like to see Elko succeed at some point. I do agree that I don't quite feel like he's there yet. But at the same time, if you're going to get a bunch of pop out of him, and this, like I said a little bit ago, this White Sox team needs somebody to put the ball out of the park, and they really haven't been doing that very well for a number of years now. If Elko could be that guy, awesome. But again, I don't think he's there. And I know that further down the line, a lot of people are really hoping that George Wokal, the big boy, is going to become somebody that we can lean on and depend on. But the real question that I have is, they threw Oscar Colas's name in the ring recently. And, you know, over the last few years, we've heard that, there's, I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but there's been this talk about how Pedro was not a big fan and they never really gave him a full chance. What are your thoughts on Oscar Colas's name being tossed in the ring as a first baseman?
I'm a Colas believer. I'm a big Oscar Colas guy. He had a good. I thought he had a solid when he came up and he played. Whatever he played, like I don't even know if he played 10 games. He played a week, maybe. He might have gotten a week out of it. But I mean, he was pretty solid. He hit 273 in that short stretch. I mean, I just don't understand not giving him the run. Um, Obviously, he provides you a left-handed bat at first. Um, so we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's really true that they're trying to move him to first base. Sure, why not? Because you didn't give him a shot in right, and obviously you signed Talkman, so his future and right's done. But sure, why not? You know what? We started by moving first baseman to the outfield. Now we're putting outfielders at first base. So let's give it a roll.
I mean, I think my personal opinion on this one is I think it's great to have competition in camp, right? It's one of those things that coaches like to use as a motivator. Uh, I, I believe that a lot of times when the coach throws a name in the ring, he doesn't necessarily believe that guy is going to be someone who is really going to have an opportunity to take a position per se. Uh, but the competition to push the folks that are really at the level of either being named that player that's going to start at that position or somebody who's really close to being named that player. If you've got two guys that are kind of battling it out, it's not necessarily a bad idea to have two or three behind them pushing them. But I don't think that Oscar Colas has much of a shot unless this guy comes in during camp and during the spring training games and just has an absolute monster of a camp and spring training to where I still don't see him getting winning a starting job, but maybe he wins himself a bench position where he can fill in the outfield, or take a few games at first base and eventually maybe try to push somebody out and use that as a motivator for him as well. But yeah, I don't see him coming into the season. And I honestly, at this point, don't see anybody else other than Andrew Vaughn coming into the season as the starting first baseman.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Jordan Gilmore. Joey Gallo does hit right; he's better, but like, it's hard. I just with how much depth is a term used lightly when it comes to the 2025 White Sox. In terms of like guys you'd want to see, I don't know if you want to waste a bench spot on Joey Gallo. Like, you're really going to try to platoon Vaughno. I just think it's a bench spot that would be wasted. I mean, Gallo's 31. Um, I mean, I think if he gets injured, there's a shot Gallo comes up. Also, the DH spot is open. Um, Kind of see if you want to put Gallo in, I think he could be a formidable DH, which is weird because he also plays first. He's a better defensive first baseman than Andrew Vaughn. Um, I don't know. Gallo's just a weird guy where it seems like he's going to need a Vaughn injury to make something happen. Otherwise, he's going to spend a lot of the team down in Charlotte.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there too. And I think maybe the only reason that Gallo does earn a roster spot early in the season is he does have some versatility. He was a Gold Glove defender in the outfield just a few years ago, right? I think it was 2 years in a row, 21 and 22 or 20 and 21, somewhere in there where he had won the Gold Glove. And he does play a decent defensive first base when he does play first base. So it gives them some options, and then the ability to be able to come in and hit as a DH with some pop if they can unlock that. The problem with the bat is the last few years he's been a strikeout king. The guy doesn't walk at all. The rates have gone in the toilet both directions on both ends, and the power's kind of dipped with it as well. So I personally think that this White Sox team is they revamp the system. I think they're trying to get away from that free swinging guys chasing pitches, striking out on junk. I think Fuller's probably going to be preaching approach more than anything with this team, and starting at the lowest levels all the way up, so that these guys have approach just drilled into their brain by the time they do reach the major league club, all the way up from A to the MLB club. And unless you can get somebody to kind of break what Gallo's been doing the last couple seasons, it's going to be very difficult to see him getting a roster spot. And the only way is if they're looking for his versatility in a few different places where they can stick him. So I don't know. He's yeah. Ralph says he's a future DFA guy. I don't even know if he sticks around long enough to he might just get cut. They've only got so many places to put guys, and unfortunately, the theme of this offseason has been sign guys that are 33 to 35, 36 years old, and kind of plug them in and hope that you can keep your youngsters down in the minor league system learning before exposing them to some of the heats of Major League Baseball. So we shall see. All right, you want to go ahead and let's I think that pretty much covers first base. Let's move over to the other corner spot and talk about third base, because I think this is probably a little bit more competitive as far as who can play there, who might end up there. I think some of the names that are on that list kind of have a similar game, similar style, and then there's a couple of names on that list that might particularly be better at one thing than the other, and vice versa. So why don't we go ahead and run down that list and give me your thoughts on the third base position battles, Jacob?
Yeah, I was going to touch briefly on this guy at first, just because I think there's a shot they tried to him there, and that's Miguel Vargas, the trade piece that they got back for. No, you're all good. I want to shout out the chat. More varying people, very important people. Voice and the mouth and the head just aren't working tonight.
It's it's spring training for all of us, brother. Right? We'll get it together next week.
But no, I think if Vargas is a guy that they're hoping that can bounce back. I'm big on Miguel Vargas. I think I think there was something there in LA, but I think when you get traded mid-season to the Dodgers to the White Sox, I think that does a little bit on your mental health. For the right reasons.
Not completely destroy it.
So, you move him over. He's now at third. He can play the outfield, but I think he wasn't obviously defensively. He struggled. Offensively, he struggled. He struggled in general. And then you sign a guy in Josh Rojas, who comes in from Seattle, who's really a defensive first type of guy, contact first type of guy, who is kind of a plug and play guy in the middle infield. He can play second, he can play short, he can play third. You bring him in, and then you obviously have Brian Ramos, who got kind of he came up. Nobody thought he was going to play. He ended up playing, and then he got hurt, and then kind of struggled down the season. But kind of got another call up. Had an okay season in Charlotte last year, coming back from the injury. But so there's three names there. There's some other names as well that I'm sure we can get into when we dive deeper. But those three I would say are the favorites for.
Absolutely, 100%. Now, I'm not as bullish on Vargas as probably most people are. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. I can be swayed. I know James and Ian have kind of tried to sway me a little bit on this one. The day that this happened, Ian and James went live, on kind of a short notice podcast to talk about the trade, and I immediately jumped on them. I might have been 108ing a little bit. I might have been a few deep. It was a beautiful night. I was in the yard watching a really rough Sox game. I'm sure. I don't remember. I know I was watching a game, but I don't remember what was going on. Hard to imagine that they weren't getting their behinds handed to them.
Listen, it's the season you want to forget.
Right, exactly. So I do remember sitting in the yard and watching the podcast, and I immediately felt like this is just not. I didn't feel good about it. Let's just say that. I felt like the return should have been better. And what I did was, I do things a little bit differently when I see a name that I'm not super familiar with, which I wasn't with Vargas. I don't go to like Baseball Reference or, to Fan Graphs or any of those places. I immediately start going to local blog sites. And I want to hear what the average fan has to say. And I won't say average because obviously I feel like a lot of bloggers, have their nose in the books and they're on the scene like a lot of our guys are. So, I start reading some of this stuff, and man, some of these guys were really shitting all over him, dude. I'm not going to lie. Like, yeah, he hit, I don't know how many home runs in the minor leagues last year, but, like 70% of them were wall scrapers, and, he's got a hitch in his swing and then all this stuff. And I was like, so, like I said, maybe I'm getting my information from the wrong places, but it left me kind of feeling less than satisfied when that trade had happened. So I hope I'm wrong. I really do, because there's a lot of people that are really high on this kid. And, if we can find a solid third baseman to bring us through this rebuild and maybe even beyond, fantastic. But on the other hand, now I'm also a little bit different than most people, that I'm still pretty high on Brian Ramos, just because, before the jump to Future Sox, Ian and I were doing our show together with White Sox Daily, and I did spend more time kind of talking about prospects. And Ian is the guy, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'll probably continue to say it for as long as I'm around, or as long as Ian's around doing this. I honestly believe this guy watches more minor league baseball than any of the scouts in our system, and probably half of the rest of Major League Baseball. And so I spent some time looking at clips and getting more and more in minor league baseball, and just watching Ramos come up. I felt like this guy had something. He really had something, and he was dealt some tough injuries and just nagging little minor stuff even that kind of keeps you from being 100%. And I'm hoping that we get a glimpse of the guy that I think he can be at some point, because we're getting to a point now where he's going to be out of options and he's got to figure it out. So I don't know how that's going to go. My personal thought is that those guys are the top two. I don't know if you put Ramos at 2 or 3 behind Rojas, because I'm guessing you think it's Vargas's job to lose at this point, or at least you think he's number 1 on the list.
I personally would put Ramos first. I think Vargas makes the team, but I think Ramos is the opening day starter.
Really?
So I'm right there with you. Yeah, actually, okay. And I'll break this into more of a hot take. This is going to be one of my hot takes for later in the year. But I think Ramos
it's in the name of the show, dude.
Right?
So throw him out there.
Let's get going. I think Ramos is the most likely of like the top prospects. Montgomery, Cuero, Teal, any of the pitchers to break camp and make the opening day roster. I think Ramos is the most likely.
Oh, all right. Cool. So that being said, I guess my question is more, it sounded like you were pretty hot on Vargas. My question is more, do you feel like this is a last chance for Ramos opening day start? Like, put him out there, see how he does for a few weeks. If it doesn't work out, they're going to, like, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think they're going to switch to Vargas? Do you think they're going to kind of go back and forth with him? Because that's the last thing I want to see. I want to see whoever's playing there. I want to see them playing every day. I want them to get their bats and get comfortable, and I want the defense to be comfortable with each other because it makes a difference. The guy you're playing next to every day as a third baseman, if you're playing next to the same shortstop or the shortstop's playing next to the same third baseman or the same first baseman is taking your throws, you know what I mean? Or you're turning two with the second baseman, the same second baseman. I think that chemistry needs to be there. And I don't know. I just, give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know. Vargas is for me a DH. He's what profiles as the opening day DH, and I know Getz has come out. Um, Venable, I think, has said it too that they want to keep DH open and they want to roll a couple guys, but like Vargas was a highly negative player at third base last year. My gosh. And so that was kind of my thought is I don't know if he can play third. I think at this point I have more trust in him playing first um, over a guy like Elko and um, Joey Gallo.
Colas,
There we go.
Joey
Name got to
Gallo.
the Colas too. And DH. I don't know if I can trust him at third. I don't know if I can trust him in left. Obviously, they have to deal Benny before they put him in left. But
Yeah,
that's
paying Benny way too
it's
much money to not play,
yeah,
unfortunately.
right. So I don't know. I don't know if he starts the year in Charlotte. I don't know what his options are looking like either. I should know that information, but I don't. So I don't know if he
think they're
starts the year in
both.
Charlotte. I don't know what to do.
I
But
think him and Ramos are both pretty close to out of options, if not
yeah.
on their last option. So, if anybody in the chat has that info, please by all means throw it out there. Be happy to give you a shout out. Also in the chat, Ralph Waldo here says the Vargas trade was light, and no one can argue against that. Gets panicked. How do you feel about that? You remember the Vargas trade? You remember what happened and
Yeah. I was high on it at the time. Um, I liked Vargas, former top 100 prospect. I didn't go to the blogs like you did. Maybe I should have. By the way, you're kind of downing yourself a little bit. Going, I go to the blogs, and Vargas
I just
was
want to hear
getting
what
shit
the
on. Like
Everman has to say. That's all.
they were right. I mean, so far they were right. Vargas was awful last year. Maybe you're onto something. Maybe we need to start going to the blogs. I think you're onto something. But no, I mean, looking at the trade, it was clear that they needed a bat. I think that was the issue at the deadline was they wanted a trade out of Fetty, but they needed a bat, and nobody wanted to give up a bat. So I think they kind of looked at their options, decided that Vargas was probably the best shot, plus 2 flyers, and that's what they took. And if you want to say gets panicked, I don't think that's necessarily an unfair statement. I think that's this is we'll get into this later. This is someone who's very high on Chris Getz, which is going to be probably the ultimate hot take of the season. But yeah, I think it was a bad trade looking back on it. Now I don't
You're high on Getz. Is that what you said?
yes, that is what I said. We'll break that
I
down.
just I want to make sure I heard that right. That's all.
I am on record saying that I think Chris Getz worked this out.
Okay. I know there are some people in the chat that will probably agree with you, and then I know there's other people in the
I don't
chat
think
just
there's
because.
anybody in the chat that will agree with me.
Oh no, I promise you, we had James Hesterman in the chat earlier, and and James and we're active on social media together. James is he's the admin, the main admin over on Facebook for White Sox Debating Cage, and he's pretty knowledgeable guy, and he also is a pretty high on gets in most instances. So I know that you're not alone in that for sure. But I remember that trade, and I felt like to me that they felt like they got Fetty for next to nothing, so they were okay with not getting super high value out of him, right? They kind of picked up a guy who was they basically felt like they were given a chance, even though he came off a phenomenal season, coming from overseas. But I think that's kind of what it. I don't want to say they panicked. I just think they were okay with maybe taking less than what he was probably worth in my eyes, anyway. But I'm not an MLB GM, so I don't get paid the big bucks to make these moves.
Yeah, no, I think I mean, like I said, I think it was okay. One part I won't agree with is the fact that I think Chris Getz gets more hate for trading Kopech, and then like Kopech turned it on for the Dodgers, but I don't think Kopech ever would have become that player with the Sox, which is kind of unfair too because he was starting to turn it on. Like he had like a really good week and then got traded. That's what happens when you start to listen to your pitching coaches. Just saying.
See, I was just gonna say that's been the thought of a lot of people here at Future Sox is the guy had the potential, all the potential in the world, and just kind of did things his own way. So, when you start to see the turnaround, literally right before he gets traded, the thought was that maybe he just started listening. He started doing the things he was being told to do, and lo and behold, I mean, those last couple of appearances for the White Sox, he was outstanding. And then they make the move, and you're like, oh, like why couldn't we get that guy the whole time?
And then he lights it up in LA.
Right. Looks really good. Aside, I mean, he had a blow up in the playoffs, but I mean, those things tend to happen. You're not going to be on every single appearance. So I want to hit up a couple of things here in the chat really quickly. We got Steve Z 5000. Thanks for checking in. Says name. Ramos had it is really. Ramos had a rough start last year, and I think they got Vargas to cover their ass. Then Ramos turned it on and produced like he does every year. We almost got Jordan Walker, another third baseman. Just a thought. I mean, yeah, again, as Jacob and I have been talking about, we both kind of agree that we think Ramos is the guy out of the gate this year. Let's just hope that he can produce the way we know that he can. Ian talking. I guess he's commenting on our Michael Kopech stuff here. Crazy what happens when you don't throw your fastball 85% of the time. Yeah,
I mean 99 in the top part of the zone doesn't work against every single hitter in the MLB.
No, especially now with all the guys that have all the tech in the world to pick up on that. They're working on this stuff in their off-season facilities, and your cameras and everything, biomechanics, the whole 9 yards. Most of these guys can catch up to 99 these days.
Right.
Well, I know we usually typically go about an hour. We're at about we're getting close to the 45-minute mark here. I'm just going to tell you that because of the past week being sick and, the day that I had today, I'm not super prepared. So I'm going to ask you, is there anything else you wanted to touch on tonight? And, do you,
so.
Cool.
I think that's about it for we'll do our jobs next time. We'll do some more research, maybe hit on some middle infielders, and we'll have a. By the way, I want to touch on Ian's comment. I'm pretty sure that Chris Getz was on record saying that he hates our team last year. Just putting that out there. Pretty sure Chris Getz said that he hated the team last year.
Yeah, we love our guys. Is probably. I mean, but then again, this is the organization where we waffle on things. Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn kind of played their cards close to the chest. Kenny more than Rick. And now we've got Chris Getz, who kind of just says whatever's at the top of his brain at any given moment. And you're like, huh? Nobody more than Pedro the last couple of years where you're really like, what? Dude, what did you say? One of the guys, we brought up the bingo card. One of the guys, with the site, one of our bloggers, brought up the funny fact that it would have been awesome to do a bingo card of just Pedroisms last year. But hindsight's 2020.
You could have blacked out something in like a week. He said the same things over and over again. And then he said some things not over and over again that he shouldn't have said the first time. But
Right. And to be honest with you, some of the crazy dumb things that he said would have been completely unpredictable to even be able to put on a bingo card for somebody to be able to block out later on. I dumbfounded. My voice was like that meme of the guy like constantly. So yeah, good stuff. So I guess we're gonna cut it a little short this week. I apologize for being prepared. Wow, let me try to see. Your brain to mouth stuff is rubbing off on me here tonight. I'm gonna blame it on all the cold medicine I'm hopped up on right now. But we're gonna cut it a little short tonight. We promised that we're gonna be a little more prepared next week. Hopefully, I'll have kicked this thing at that point and have my head in a better headspace. But we're gonna wrap things up. So, excuse me. First off, I'd like to say thank you for everybody coming in after such a long layoff here. We really appreciate you guys checking in. I see a lot of my regulars in here tonight. I'm hoping to see more of them next week. As you know, Nick has moved on to other things. He is still doing his thing with his partner over at Good Guys Talk Back. And, during my health scare, he were off for a while. He decided to take that time off to jump on a new adventure. So if you guys want to check out Sox and Sober podcast for our old friend Nick Morawski, please go ahead and do that. While you're here, if you're not here, if you're listening to us somewhere else, if you want to catch all the recordings from myself, from Jacob, from the guys that are on Sunday nights, Ian and James, any of Ian's highlights that you're going to see throughout the season, we're going to be seeing a lot more of those again. You can find all of that on YouTube. Smash that like button. I understand if you don't want to donate in the super chat or jump on our Patreon, which is available on our website as well. For $2 a month, you can go ahead and subscribe to Patreon and get all our exclusive content. If you don't want to do any of that, it is absolutely free to just hit that like and subscribe button, hit the little bell so that you get all of your updates and all your notifications when we drop something new. All of that stuff is free and it helps us out tremendously. So we'd really appreciate it if you do that. As I said, you can find us here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. In the future, you'll find us on YouTube and Twitch at Twitch TV /FutureSox. Again, YouTube, and you'll also find James and Ian. You will find Future Sox Roundup with Jeff and Elijah. Guys, checked all that stuff out. Am I missing anything? God, I feel like there's so much. FutureSox.net for all our other content. Check us out on Twitter. Give us a subscribe there as well at Future Sox on Twitter. My name is Danny Miller at Danny Miller FS. This guy over there.
That's my buddy.
Yep. Yeah, it's my buddy Jacob. He is on Twitter at jthome. It's THOME, like Thome 21. Guys, go ahead and give him a follow. Again, can't wait to see you guys next week. We'll be here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Until then, go White Sox.